Inside Indiana Softball. I'm Will Chuckerman, joined by the head coach, Michelle Gardner. Nice to see you today.
Thank you, thank you.
And I want to just kind of keep this preseason based. And we haven't been able to get really excited about anything in this town with the weather we've had. And you've probably, though, had a little bit of pep in your step just thinking about the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. Well, to start with, the first 2 days of our preseason, we actually were outside, which has never happened. Of course, we spoke a little too soon because then it went to sub-zero. So we've spent the rest of the time in Mellencamp and obviously in the new hitting area. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for the season.
And you talked about the new batting cage that you guys have. It's now 2 years old. How important has that been? I know it was a main topic of last year, but with the unpredictability of the weather that we had, having that indoor batting cage has to have been huge for you guys.
Oh, it is, because we have access to it 24/7. And not that we can't use Mellencamp, because we still use that for team defense and some other things, but it just is, it's so easy. They can go in and hit anytime they want, and they've taken advantage of that, which is amazing.
And after doing this for a few years now, can you tell where a team is preseason, or do you have to see them play against another team before you can accurately say, I think we're going to be good at the beginning of the season, or I think we're going to be playing well at a certain point? Do you have to see them play an opponent before you can kind of make that judgment?
Yes. Me personally, I mean, I can look around the field and go, okay, I like what I see, but until you put on your uniform and game up against somebody else, sometimes it's hard to gauge that. And I think that, I think we're in a good place. I like where we are. We're ready to play, as most teams are at this point of the season, knowing that, we're a week out right now, because next Friday we're playing. I feel very good about where we are and the work that we've put in. Now it's just a matter of putting it on the field.
And you talk about going on the road. As a coach, do you want the team to get a little bit more out of these trips than just necessarily playing, because they've been practicing for a long time, but living with each other on the road is a whole different animal?
Well, it can be, but I think there's a lot to be said. Team chemistry. I mean, I think when you're traveling with somebody and you're with them 24/7, you're eating together, you're in a hotel together, we're in a bus together, flights, all those things. There's something to be said for that, and I think team chemistry is kind of built in that. But the bottom line still is we're going to play ball, so and we're just ready to play.
and team chemistry, I feel like in baseball and softball, it's definitely magnified more than the other sports because it is such a long ride in the season, and that you're kind of out there by yourself and all that type of stuff. So you do feel that is, though, a little bit of an important thing to kind of get rolling early on off the bat?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that, especially for a team that we have some young players, but we have some returners, we have some, people back from injury, so it's kind of a different group, actually. And so I think for them, just to get to spend some get-to-know-you time is always beneficial.
And not just the team chemistry out in Arizona, you're going to be playing some very talented teams in the first week, Stanford being one of them. Can you kind of just talk about what it's like to get going with some high-quality opposition?
Well, I think, my plan when I set the schedule is that obviously whatever we're doing in our preseason is to get ready for Big Tens. So in our preseason, we are going to face teams like Stanford and top 25 teams, because that's how we are preparing to win the conference. Because that's, you look at the preseason and the Big Ten, well, the preseason is just part of, one part of our season. So for me, we schedule, tough, but we still have to be able to see some success and get some wins, hopefully. We're prepared for that, but I'm always gonna schedule tough just to get prepared for that Big Ten.
And how much different is it that you're playing single opponents on a day? Because when, of course, you get into conference schedule, you're playing a series during a weekend. How much, as a coach and as a team, does it change when you're playing maybe a doubleheader, you're playing two different teams, and then the next day you're playing another two teams?
Right. Well, we're going to play 5 teams in a weekend.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things to be said for that, because sometimes, when we're playing a Big Ten series and it's the same team, you can prepare a little bit better. But when it's 5 different teams now, not that we don't prepare, because we do, but it's like you really gotta focus on one opponent at a time. And the preseason can be so important later, like for regionals and things like that, that you really, it's every single game is important, and not just for Big Tens, but beyond that. So it can be challenging, but I think we've just done it for so long, because that's what, since I was a player, this is kind of what you do, and we just get used to it. And I think the tough thing for us has been in the past not being outside. Obviously we can't practice outside when it's minus 12 degrees. So, I think the first weekend is always a challenge. One, because we're gonna get out of dirt for the first time. And two, we haven't had that kind of weather or been able to do anything out there. This year, we had a couple days out, but we're still gonna be going from indoors.
Yeah.
So, it's just, there are a number of challenges, but that's what it's about.
And you did say challenge a little bit, and you did mention you have been outside a couple times. How much is it a relief to kind of just know that you're going to be playing a full weekend outdoors without really any difficulties?
Well, it's knock on wood that it doesn't rain in Phoenix, because I'm sure there's always a potential. But that is part of the reason we go to Arizona, is our odds of good weather. Our sport is based on weather, and so with that being said, we go to Phoenix, and I'm excited about the idea of being outside and playing for 3 days.
And now focusing on just the team and the players, the aspect of that, not too much roster turnover. You have people coming back. There are some injuries you have to deal with. Where do you stand with just the team preparation in general?
Well, I feel like we have a couple people who are pretty solid in their positions. We've got a few really vying for positions right now, and I think when it comes down to it, it's going to be who's going to produce, and obviously we need to score runs, and my staff has worked extremely hard with this group just to prepare them for all the things that that are going to be coming down the pike. And so I think you could see a number of different things. The one returning athlete that just is standing out in my mind is Bree Salcido, who started off the season last year on fire and then had a season-ending injury. She's had surgery, she's rehabbed, she's back, and I really think she's going to be a catalyst for our team and kind of our plate, table setter, all of that. But she's just stepped up, and sometimes I think it's just that maturity, and I'm seeing a maturity in this group that I haven't seen in the past. So I'm really happy about the things that are going on.
And you talk about people vying for positions, and you just talked about maturity being something that you really take into account. Is that one of the things when you're looking at one player versus another, or do you look at how they've been practicing, how they played last year? Does kind of all that have to mesh into one to kind of make that final decision?
I think it does. I think, you're going to look at what they've done in the past and how they're practicing, because all of that transitions. And it's funny because we were talking about basketball earlier, and the truth of the matter is you could do one thing one year and the next year you're a totally different player. And so I just think for us we tend to see growth from year to year, because as obviously as you go through these things and you understand a little bit better, it's an easier transition. So I really feel like we've got the good combination of returners and freshmen to have a really good opportunity to do some great things this year.
And have you pinpointed kind of what you think the strength can be on this team, whether it be hitting, whether it be pitching, but also there are so many other characteristics in a game that you have to look at. Is there one thing that maybe has surprised you that you think could be a little bit better than what you saw last year?
I think we have really good leadership, which I think is absolutely instrumental in how a season can go. I think this group is very resilient. I think they've worked extremely hard in the off season on a number of things, not just physical but mental, and that always helps in the process. And now it's just a matter of putting it all together out on the field.
And that will do it for this edition of Inside Indiana Softball. Coach, thank you very much for joining us this week.
Well, it's been a pleasure.